Tonight, a love story that turns into a lost story. A lost mom of two young boys, that is.
Plus a key witness, Deborah, who asks the police to pray with her before she tells them what she knows. An all-new 2020 starts right now.
She was a wonderful mother. She loved her boys more than anything, more than her own life.
A young woman who is a parent suddenly had disappeared.
Was there anything suspicious in the car?
And we saw in the back seat there were car seats, for the two boys.
But to disappear without them, that wasn't possible. That was not Laura.
She drops off the map. This wasn't going to be just a normal missing person.
Oh, baby, don't go. Oh, baby, don't leave me.
He knew how to charm a lady and charm the crowd alike.
Oh, I don't want to leave you lonely. And then it wasn't too much longer later that Amanda came into the picture.
What did Grant tell your mom about Laura?
That she was crazy, she was mentally unstable.
He lied.
And here was a document that said she sold her kids for $25,000.
And they were like, well, Laura's missing. And I was like, wait a freaking second. Are you sure?
What are you thinking at this point?
Something is really wrong.
You've got to be sick and deranged.
What would drive anybody to commit such a crime?
Wherever she is, her heart is breaking.
The search continues.
There's been cases I investigate I don't even remember. But then there's some that while you're in the midst of it, this one was just different.
Oyster Creek is notorious for alligators.
That's just a long, meandering creek.
It's a small creek, slow moving in that area.
Very dark, murky, muddy water.
Has zero visibility.
It's heavily wooded. There's a lot of lily pads.
All the lily pads literally took off the creek.
It was the perfect place to get rid of what they wanted to get rid of.
This is Oyster Creek, a quiet spot about 30 miles outside Houston, Texas. On a hot, steamy July day, just like this one, back in 2011, police divers were scouring these murky waters, searching for clues in the disappearance of a young mom. But Laura Ackerson was last heard from 1,200 miles away from here, in North Carolina.
Wednesday, July 13th at 4:19 p.m.
Hi, lady, it's Laura. I'll be there in about an hour, but I'm going to go visit with my boys. Don't know what's going to happen as far as I'm concerned.
Laura left that voicemail for a friend she promised to visit later that night. Meanwhile, another friend and business partner, Siobhan Mathis, was also waiting to hear from her.
It was just very odd that it was going straight to her voicemail, because she always had that phone on. I walked to her house, but it's gated and locked and you can't get in, but I can see into the garage and her car wasn't there.
Then she sends her an email. I'm really worried. If you don't get up with me, I'm going to call the police.
Siobhan was getting more and more worried with every passing second. And she decided to report Laura missing.
I don't want to think the worst, but it's almost like what else is there to, to think?
Police in Raleigh, North Carolina start looking into Laura Ackerson's background. They find out she's a small-town girl from Michigan. Roger Ackerson was her dad.
She was curious. She wanted to learn things. She'd crawl up in my lap with a book, want me to read to her.
Laura's parents divorced when she was just a toddler. As she grew older, it was clear she had a bright spark.
Full of dreams. She could see beyond the end of her nose, where a lot of people can't.
Everybody she met, she would always see the good in everyone.
She didn't become the valedictorian of her high school class because she didn't want to do all the work. But a couple of years down the road, she said, boy, I wish I had.
After high school, she moved to North Carolina and landed a waitressing job. That's where she met Heidi Schumacher.
We were working at Applebee's together. Her first day, I was training her. I,
was a little snippety at her, and she said, "You're not gonna talk to me like that." Nobody had ever stood up to me before, and I said, "Oh, you know what?" I smiled at her and I said, "Well, let's go out tonight. We're gonna be great friends."
And then, when Laura turned 23, she had an announcement to make.
And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I have a surprise for you." And I said, "Okay, well, happy birthday," because it was on her birthday. And I was like, "Okay, what is the surprise?" She's like, "Okay, it's a guy." And I said, "Oh, all right, surprise, it's a guy."
So flipping tired, shoes on the floor, food in the pan, what makes a man?
Grant Hayes was a aspiring musical artist.
Show me a woman, I'll show you a man.
He was known to Raleigh area.
Talk to her sweetly, tell her no lie.
Raleigh is a place we call the New South. It's a great mix of people coming from all over the country, raising their families. It's big enough that you have a city atmosphere, but it also has some small town values.
Downtown Raleigh was kind of burgeoning, and so there are all these, new bars and restaurants, and he was a musical act who would play at a lot of these places.
Are you still with me when I'm gone? Are you still with me when I don't come?
People liked his music. People liked his vibe.
Grant Hayes, we love you.
And she said, "We share a birthday. We're so connected." She thought it was some sort of cosmic intervention, that they were supposed to meet and they were supposed to be together.
We were always together, and in the nighttime we go outside, look up.
And she was smitten.
She was, and he was, he's a nice-looking guy. He's charismatic, and so seeing that, I think maybe a little bit of starstruck.
I grew up in the pew, little Grant III, watching my father preach, and my mother would sing. And they've always been a huge inspiration.
Grant was known by his last name, Hayes. He thought he could get some more buzz by changing H-A-Y-E-S to H-A-Z-E, Hayes.
She was kind of in awe of what he did. See, he would go to bars and he'd take his guitar and he'd sing songs.
I'm working with some iconic figures in history, music history. Little Richard, godfather of rock and roll.
Laura and Grant fell in love very quickly.
She goes, my surprise is that I just got married. And I said, "Oh my gosh, awesome." She just was a spur of the moment kind of person, so it didn't really surprise me, I guess, that she would just meet somebody and get married to them. And she was like ecstatic at that moment.
Laura got pregnant very early on, and she had a little boy named Grant, the fourth. Always referred to as Little Grant.
What she told me after she delivered the baby was that she was very happy because when Grant walked in and saw him, he fell in love with the baby.
Oh, baby, don't go. Oh, baby, don't leave me.
Heidi was not a fan of Grant Hayes, and she was very clear about that.
We've had hateful tension between us since the moment we met. And she said, "Why can't you just be happy for me?" I said, "I know, but I just got this really bad feeling from him." And, and she would say that I was just trying to protect her, and I was just being an overprotective friend, and, all that. And so I backed off.
Soon, an opportunity in the Caribbean takes Laura and Grant's lives in very different directions.
Party, stay out late, stay up all night. They were kind of living two separate lives.
There was something simmering underneath that in the relationship. There may have been trouble there in paradise.